their vision for a justice system that values human lives and ensures that every individual is treated with dignity and respect. I implore each of you to consider the power and responsibility of the District Attorney's Office, as it holds the key to ensuring that justice is served and that innocent lives are not needlessly destroyed. Let us work together to create a system that truly serves and protects all members of our society. Thank you. We will begin with 90-second opening statement. District Attorney Ogg, will you please tell us who you are and why you are running for District Attorney?
I am Kim Ogg, your elected district attorney. I've served in the role for 7 years. I lead an institution that employs about 850 people who serve almost 5 million of you. Our job is to see that justice is done, not just convictions. You know, I spent some time reviewing the questionnaires of my opponent and myself, and what I would tell you is they're very similar, with one exception. The programs that my opponent describes wanting to implement already exist. We've done those programs, and I certainly didn't do it without the help of 850 of our employees who have dramatically changed the complexion and the direction of the District Attorney's Office. That was intentional. We have implemented and institutionalized second chance programs for juveniles, the mentally ill, and others charged with drug possession, even felony drug possession. Our focus is violent crime because that's what is the greatest threat to most residents of Harris County, and they think it's important. So that's where our focus will be. My vision is one to be completed, a safe county with a fair system. That's what I hope to accomplish in my 3rd term.
Mr. Tier.
I'm Sean Tier. I'm a native Houstonian, a husband, father of 4, and I spent 11 years in the DA's office. I've handled everything from Class C traffic tickets all the way up to capital murders and everything in between. I have supervised hundreds of prosecutors in that office, boots on the ground in the courts with them as early as last year. I believe in the mission of that office. I believe in the oath that those prosecutors take to see that justice is done in every case. But what that office is going through right now is something that should terrify every one of us. The office is broken. We're hemorrhaging good, experienced, empathetic prosecutors, and they're not going to get rich and be criminal defense lawyers or civil lawyers. They're going to work for real leaders like Brian Middleton in Fort Bend County, a man who I'm going to emulate greatly in the way that we go forward in programs. But what we have to do is fix the office from the inside so that we can implement the programs that we all believed were going to come and be effective in 2017. I hope during this forum we get into a lot of the plans, because we've got to fix the way we accept charges. We've got to fix the way that we divert cases. And quite frankly, we've got to get talent in there so we can really prosecute violent crimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, on these remaining questions, you each have 1 minute to respond. All right? Good luck. There is a timer in front.
He does know us both.
So, our first question, Mr. Tier, you will go first this time.
Perfect.
Since 2016, Harris County has reduced by more than 30% the number of people sent to state prisons annually. If elected, will you establish a concrete target for safely decreasing the number of people sent to prison or state jail from Harris County? If not, why not?
I will. And what we're going to see in that is through diversion programs that don't just have you go into a courtroom and make us feel better because we give you 5 different conditions to work through. We're going to have community courts. We're going to have different satellite places, especially for the low drug level offenses and things like that. We're going to partner with unions where the probation conditions aren't a pathway to prison, not a setup for failure. We're going to give one condition. That's go learn a trade. Go have some hope to be something better and more successful as you go forward in your life. And if you do, your case is over. And that is going to minimize our prison population and our Harris County jail population, because right now we have so many people in there for technical violations on these probation conditions. All of those and others are ways that we are going to concretely decrease the men and women we send to prison.
Ms. Ogg.
Well, I don't have to say will. There's a reason that the population in the prisons have decreased by that amount. And it is the diversion programs that are available for everyone to read about on our website and in our latest annual report. Our diversion programs impact thousands of people each year. And by diversion, what we mean is working somebody through the system to a place where they have no final conviction, or routing them completely around the system, like we do with marijuana and mental health, people who have had mental health histories and commit some low-level violent crime. Between those two populations and the diversion programs that we employ after charging, thousands of people each year do not go to prison. I do not and have not seen the stats about technical violations because they are rarely pursued as a reason to revoke someone.
Thank you. Nikki, I will pass it to you.
Thank you. District Attorney Ogg, you will go first this time. Black people are half of the county's jail population, but they account for less than 21% of Harris County's population overall. What specific steps will your office take, if any, to reduce racial disparities in incarceration in Harris County? DA Ogg?
We see great racial disparity among our crime victim population, who is certainly more than half black and brown. When it comes to decreasing racial disparity in enforcement, I worked with 86 police chiefs to, on my 47th day in office, end, for the most part, all prosecution of possession of marijuana under 4 ounces. It is by far the most aggressive, progressive plan in the state because it applies to everyone regardless of their criminal history. So in getting the police to work with us, we had to agree that even habitual criminals, people who had murder convictions, if their only offense was possession of marijuana under 4 ounces, they would go free, the contraband would be recovered, and they would go to an education class. This eliminates the racial disparity that's so prevalent in first offender programs.
Thank you. Mr. Tier?
Well, the racial disparity still exists. So what we have to do is figure out why. And one of the things that we have to do is find a new way to deal with simple narcotics possession. And credit to my opponent, the misdemeanor marijuana diversion program was great. 47 days into her first term, and you haven't seen anything since. We have to continue being cutting edge. We need to do what we've done with marijuana in a different way with all narcotics possession. We need to work with the Commissioner's Court and with other stakeholders to fund different places to put them. And when we have them evaluated, what to do with them, because we know it ain't jail. That has been proven time and again. So we've got to figure out how to get them back on the path to success. And when we do that, I think you will see that racial disparity start to drop.
Thank you. We just asked the audience if you could please hold your applause till after they finish so that we could allow them the full minute.
Unless I'm talking, then it's okay.
Mr. Tier, you will go first this time. What is your definition of public safety? And what is the role of the DA in ensuring public safety?
I'm going to go backwards. I think the DA is the most important component to public safety. The DA is the one that houses every single criminal charge. So as the DA's policies and implementation of those policies go, so goes public safety. Public safety means that every single community member in the county has the right to feel safe, and that is from everyone involved. It means that they have the right to feel safe from violent predators preying on them, either at ATMs, in their own home, on the street, at the Galleria. But it also means that communities have to feel safe from the law enforcement agencies that are there to protect them. So all of that is encompassed in public safety. And as we go forward, we have to hold everyone accountable, police officers and the community as one.
Thank you. DA Ogg?
Public safety is a shared responsibility between law enforcement, between other organizations in our society, courts, and other important stakeholders in the justice system, but most importantly, it's also a community responsibility. Law enforcement should be working with the community daily, if not hourly, to improve public safety through trusted information from people who know. Our prosecutors receive cases from law enforcement, and so it's the second half of the public safety puzzle. But we depend on community members to report crime, to witness and be the witnesses to crime, and to work with law enforcement to protect their own neighborhoods. It's our responsibility to keep the process fair in the courts.
Thank you. Anthony, I'll pass it on to you.
All right, District Attorney, you will go first this time. Nowhere are the consequences of a broken criminal justice system more severe than in administration of the death penalty. And nowhere is it more evident that race plays a major role in who is charged, convicted, and executed. Will you promise to exercise your discretion to seek sentences other than death?
Yes. We have taken more people off death row during the Ogg administration than have ever been put on death row by a previous administration. We use the death penalty the most sparingly because it is the ultimate sanction. I wholeheartedly believe in conviction integrity and the review of writs and death penalty cases, and so we implemented a division. It existed before I got there, to the credit of my predecessor, and we expanded it because we know that mistakes happen and that evidence and testing and science progresses, and that gives people a permanent chance, should they be innocent or deserve relief, to get it. And that's why we assign permanent personnel to that division.
Mr. Tier.
In this instance, I will almost completely agree with my opponent. Since 2016, this office has been very, very good and intentional about the very few cases that death is sought. Where I'm going to diverge is the actual conviction integrity unit, what needs to be more robust and with more latitude. There has to be an independent review of that. And so my discretion as to seeking the death penalty is going to be very akin to the way that that Ms. Ogg has done it, but we're going to ensure not just that cases that the ultimate punishment is sought on are reviewed, but every single person who's ever been convicted is going to eventually get a robust, comprehensive review of their case.
Well, you looking at my notes because you segue right into my next question.
Ah, see, and now I get to go first, so I love it. Let's go.
Mr. Teal, you will go first this time. Conviction integrity units work to identify and remedy false convictions. A key principle for effective conviction integrity units is independence. Will you ensure that the Harris County Conviction Integrity Unit is truly independent, that it reports directly to the elected district attorney, and that its recommendations are not subject to the review of other units, such as the trial or appellate units?
Yes, in complete yes. That is exactly what has to happen. There cannot be a layer between the elected DA and the head of the Conviction Integrity Unit. There cannot be any other stakeholder that gets that information before the elected DA does, simply because of what you just insinuated. Other people might have a vested interest in not having the information come out. So you've got to have them walled off. You've got to have that unit staffed by someone who, in my mind, has had all three layers in the judicial system. You need someone who's presided over a death penalty case, someone who's tried one from the defense side, and someone who's tried one from the prosecution side, so that you have every different facet and potential blind spot covered when they go through the reviews. That's something that I'm excited about truly creating for the first time in the DA's office, one that is fully robust and independent.
DA Ogg,
Same question?
same question.
It exists. Come visit. Gavin Ellis has recently staffed it for the last 2.5 years. Prior to that, it was other talented senior lawyers. They are dedicated individuals, and I want to give credit to the prosecutors who work in our administration. It's amazing to me to listen to my opponent, know that he worked shoulder to shoulder with many of these people and has turned his back on their achievements. The notices and the information that goes out from our Conviction Integrity Unit on problems with lab techs, on problems with experts in the past, on all kinds of issues that could mean somebody accused and convicted actually deserves relief. That's what they do. And while they report to the head of the Appellate and Writ Bureau, it's always information that comes directly to our first assistants and to the DA when it involves informing the community about any major breach in the state's presentation, past or present.
Thank you. Nikki?
District Attorney Ogg, you will go first this time. Texas has two systems of justice, one for the rich and one for the poor. If you're wealthy, you usually go free before trial and you're innocent until proven guilty. But if you're poor, you often stay in jail. Even in the case where the person is found not guilty, they will have spent time away from their family and job, meaning that their children lose parental connections, families lose income, and individuals accused of crimes often find themselves vulnerable and unemployed upon release. Will you publicly oppose legislation that requires more people to put up cash to get out of jail in Texas?
I cannot by law promise with cash bail in our Constitution that all crimes, even misdemeanors, should be cashless bail, because the primary role of the district attorney is to advocate for the public's safety. So where you truly have a high-risk individual in, let's say, a misdemeanor domestic violence case, It's incumbent upon us to utilize all the tools that we have to protect the victim and the community. It should never be a situation where bail is used to discriminate against people based on their economic situation. It should only be used in the situations where public safety is a greater threat than the individual's right to be free while awaiting trial.
Thank you. Mr. Tier?
The fact that in 2024, we are tying someone's pre-conviction release to what's in their bank account is antiquated and quite frankly, barbaric. There's no proof that however much money you have is going to be an indicator on whether or not you're a future danger to society. What we should be asking, and what the elected district attorney of the third largest county in the country should be up in Austin testifying about, is changes that are based on a risk-based system. Are you a threat to the community? Are you a flight risk? If the answer is yes to those, I don't care if you're Warren Buffett or you had to sleep last night under I-10, you should stay in custody. But if the answer is no to those, or the answer is yes and we can mitigate it with some pretrial conditions, then get out of the jail. Those are the things that the elected district attorney should be advocating for, should be doing. Someone who truly cares about public safety should be doing that, and I commit to you that I will.
Thank you. Next question. Mr. Tier, you will go first. The war on drugs in America has been a failure. Drug use has not declined, while millions of people, disproportionately poor people and people of color, have been caged and then branded with criminal records. These records create long-term barriers to employment, housing, and stability. How will your office ensure that drug misuse is treated as a public health issue and not a crime?
This one's very personal to me. I watched my mother go from an alcohol addiction to a heroin addiction to arrest, and I helped at 15 bail her out of Harris County Jail. I watched her go through the system. She became a felon, and everything that comes with that. She then became a victim of intimate partner violence and sexual assault, and it eventually took her life. I have seen firsthand how the criminal justice system deals with addiction, and I don't think I'm telling any secrets. It doesn't do it well. So we already talked a little bit about it, but I want to get comprehensive, top to bottom, about how we can put people on a different path than the one they're on. And that starts and ends for the DA's office by not making them felons, by not giving them a criminal record. And when we can do that, we can give them hope and save people.
Thank you. DA Ogg?
Come visit the reintegration court where Judge Brock Thomas and Maritza Sharma, our prosecutor, have for the last 7 years actually moved 4,000 people a year around and through our system without convictions. It's true, not everybody makes it. Some pass away while they're actually in the court on the docket. Some do choose jail, which is tragic and not what we push. What I can tell you is over 4,000 people a year charged with felony drug possession go through this court. And who doesn't go through the court are people charged with trace amounts in crack pipes of prohibited substances, because we ended that prosecution back in 2017. So the drug policies that we have now would have greatly benefited someone like your mom.
Thank you. Next question.
District Attorney Ogg, you will respond to this question first. Language is powerful. It shapes thoughts and attitudes, and it can have a serious effect on how a society sees and treats groups of people. If elected, Will you instruct prosecutors to use respectful, accurate, person-centered language when talking about people involved with the criminal legal system, and to refrain from using harmful and outdated language like convict, inmate, or felon?
Answer. Those are in part legal terms. And what I would tell you is that I wrote a broader policy that said every single person, whether they're accused, whether they're a victim, or whether they're simply a member of our community, will be treated with respect and dignity, will be served equally, will never be asked their country of origin in order to be a complainant, will always have their rights protected. And so the words that our lawyers use are often legal terms, and while they can be improved in society to punish employees for using terms that are based in law would be wrong. So I cannot commit to what is asked in that particular question, but I can guarantee that respect and dignity are the cornerstone of our mission statement.
Mr. Tier.
It's already been a journey, and it has to be a journey more. We have to be intentional about the language we use. Ms. Ogg is right in that there are terms, there are charges, felon in possession of a firearm. There are times that those words need to be used. But to just throw your hands up and say, well, we can't do anything about the language, is what we've seen in a lot of different ways inside that office over the last 7.5 years. We have to continue trying to better ourselves. We've got to give education, not just on language and its harmful use, but on implicit and explicit bias on plea bargains. We've got to continue to give robust, well thought out trainings, not just on the technical aspects of how to prosecute, but how to do so empathetically, compassionately, and with an eye toward healing.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Tier, you will respond to this question first. A majority of Texans support the decriminalization of marijuana. Will you support legalization to decriminalize and legalize recreational marijuana use?
I will be in Austin testifying about it. I will do anything I can to take it out of the criminal world in every facet. My personal belief is that marijuana should be treated exactly like alcohol is treated. We should keep it away from children, but as an adult, you should be able to partake in that if you can have a beer. And all of the things that go with alcohol, in that you can't drive after you smoke or take a gummy, but other than that, if you're going to do it in your home, I think personally it's ridiculous that it's still criminal, and I will do and advocate for its legalization.
DA Ogg.
Yes.
All right, we can get to more questions.
I did it. But I'd like to use just a little bit of my time to say, Mr. Tier, did you miss your mandatory implicit 6-hour bias training that we held for every single member of the District Attorney's Office prosecutorial staff?
Oh, if I can answer, no, I didn't. I went, and it was 5 years ago. I know we've had almost 200% turnover since then, so.
I think you'd have to prove that.
All right. Next question.
DA Ogg, you will respond first this time. Achieving safety and justice is a community-wide effort. Communities across Harris County care deeply about the work of the Harris County District Attorney's Office in pursuing safety and justice. What strategies will you use to engage and communicate with communities and address concerns about the office?
We established a community engagement division, never established in the DA's office under any past administration. And the whole purpose is to provide information and accessibility to all communities in Harris County, because understanding our system is difficult. And being from another country or speaking a different language or simply not being a lawyer, and let me say many lawyers don't get it, there's a lot to understand, and it's confusing and it's frightening to people, and community engagement is the best way we've found to get out to the public. I personally utilize media like I did during the New Year's holiday to tell people every single day, DWIs are killing people. We've got a 24-hour task force going for the next 5 days, and as a result of that community input, aggressively done, there were no alcohol-related deaths over the New Year holiday, and I think that shows the power of community and media.
Thank you. Mr. Tier?
I was in charge of that community message for 6.5 years. Community outreach is incredibly important, and we are going to have a real community outreach team. We are not going to hide our campaign managers as the heads of community outreach that our DA has done since 2017. We are going to have people who are dedicated solely to communicating what the office is doing. But that can't just be it. It can't just be random people going out to hand out flyers or nice pamphlets. The DA has to be in these meetings. We have to go see Pure Justice. We have to walk doors with TOP. We have to listen. I have to listen. When I get in office, I'm going to implement some pretty fun, exciting changes, but I'm not going to know if they work unless I'm hearing it from the people on the ground, and I will be there over and over to hear it.
Thank you. Mr. Tier, you will respond to this question first. What, if any, changes will you make to the intake system in Harris County?
Oh, wow. Wait, don't start yet. There's so much fun stuff. All right, I'm kidding. Go ahead. We're going to scrap the way we're doing it right now. We are going to bring back line prosecutors that will have to handle that case if they take it, or their partner, or the person next door will. People that have experience handling those kind of cases. That is not what's happening now. My opponent will tell you, oh, it's great. Read the Houston Chronicle. Look at the data. Go talk to some of our incredible elected judges that are here right now afterwards. Go ask anyone that works in that office. Go ask anyone in that courthouse. The intake system is utterly broken. I will bring it back. We will accept good charges. We will be a resource to police officers on the street, as opposed to what is happening right now. There is nothing that's going on in that intake system right now that's good, and we're going to fix it.
DA Ogg?
I wish that the coworkers you worked with were all here to hear you personally say how inept and how inexperienced and what poor performance they've delivered, because what I see among our 45 full-time employees who staff intake and our 20 or so part-time employees that staff it is a hell of a dedication to public service, to police review of all of their charges, and mainly they provide a service to the public, because if you're accused, it's simply an extra layer of review. Our lawyers never did make the ultimate decision about whether the case as it stands 24 or 48 hours later is good in the eyes of the magistrate making the decision or the judge making the decision. They always have that final say. Our intake lawyers provide an extra layer of review. And because people don't always agree on what's enough, then you see additional cases being thrown out for no probable cause, not because our lawyers are inept, but because there's a difference of opinion and judges win.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now move on to partners' question. Partners, please come up. All right, and when you ask your question, please identify yourself.
Hi, good evening. My name is Blair Wallace, and I lead our reproductive freedom work at the ACLU of Texas. My question is, DAs, how do you envision the role of the DA ensuring that healthcare providers are not targeted or criminalized for providing medical care within any medical exceptions to our abortion ban? And second, how do you ensure that they will not be targeted for criminalization in referring patients for out-of-state legal abortion care?
DA Ogg, you will answer this question first.
You know, the way we ensure that people are not prosecuted for these types of crimes is to ensure that we're not removed as lawyers and elected district attorneys for making political statements about political topics that have been criminalized, such as abortion. The very statement of a policy saying never or always is now a qualification for removal, and that's the worst possible thing that could happen to women in Harris County, because Governor Abbott would then have the opportunity to appoint somebody who does believe that abortion should be criminalized. I marched in Washington for reproductive rights on my own dime and my own time. I've been a woman all my life, and I continue to believe in our reproductive independence. But as DA, I'm not stepping into that trap. That would endanger women, not help them.
Thank you. Mr. Tier?
The DA is right in that we can't say we're never going to prosecute, but she is not the advocate we have to have. During these bills, when they were getting passed, these are incredibly difficult cases if we were ever actually going to try them. How is the elected DA of the third largest county in the country not up there talking about how difficult the bill would be if it passed, how immoral the bill is? You didn't hear any of that. You had courageous district attorneys across this state, well before they had passed the law, sign a letter saying they would not prosecute these. Regardless of what happens later, at least that gave some comfort. The one Democrat that didn't sign it was your elected DA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Can you please identify yourself?
My name is Joanne with Pure Justice. It has been said that currently the Harris County DA's office runs a 24-hour call center, which causes them to accept over 90% of the charges called in by the Harris County Sheriff's Department and the Houston Police Department, leading to large numbers of arrests, jail overcrowding, and lengthy jail stays. It has also been said that these charges are being accepted without enough evidence to support the charge at the time of arrest. If elected, how will you ensure charges are only accepted when supported by sufficient evidence or probable cause? Are re-elected?
Thank you. Mr. Tier, you will answer this question first.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Kim's wrong in that the vast majority of the people that are at intake right now are not my coworkers and peers. They are people that we cannot continue to have there because they don't prosecute cases. They don't know the kind of cases that they should be taking and not taking, and quite frankly, they don't have any accountability. I have been in the courts for 7 years. I know they don't respond to emails about questions. They don't care. So what we have to do is go back to a way where rank and file good experienced prosecutors are accepting or rejecting the cases. When we have that, you won't see this amount of no probable causes, because what you saw earlier in her response is what she does in every case where there's an issue in her office. She shifts the blame. No PC is not the judge's fault. They are the people that have to review that. We shouldn't be putting so many people through the jail system when there's no PC because of the inexperience and, quite frankly, bad work product we have coming out of there now.
DA Ogg.
Have you no shame, Mr. Tier, in talking about the public servants who staff 24/7, 365 days a year and support 86 law enforcement agencies? For your information, since you did not work intake after 2017, only the vehicular crimes off-site intake, we have rejected about 30,000 cases a year, saving all of those peace officers the time they would have taken to bring the person to jail, and most importantly, saving those accused individuals from a trip to jail. Our preliminary review is not the legal standard for arrest. Law enforcement can arrest at any time. But the jail, through agreements made 50 years ago, and the sheriff's office want only charges that have been reviewed by the DA. That takes us head and shoulders above every other jurisdiction that doesn't offer that 24/7. And it protects the public by getting the job done immediately, not leaving people out on the street while people put together warrants and gather all the evidence. It's simply a preliminary review.
Thank you.
Our next partner.
Hi, my name is Katie Mirza. I'm here on behalf of the Immigrant Legal Resource Center and the rest of the Houston Leads Immigrant Rights Coalition. The U.S. Supreme Court in Padilla v. Kentucky suggested that when prosecutors consider immigration consequences, more just outcomes can be obtained for all parties. When even a low-level criminal offense can lead to mandatory immigration detention and mandatory deportation, for even a longtime green card holder, how do you plan to ensure that immigrants are not subjected to double punishment and forced to suffer immigration consequences that flow from a criminal conviction?
Thank you. DA Ogg, you will answer this question first.
We have a policy and a belief among all of our prosecutors that's trained. It started with Ruben Perez, one of our most senior lawyers, that everybody in the United States, whether you were born here or not, enjoys the protection of our Constitution, meaning all people have constitutional rights and should be protected from violation of those rights. We have a broad U-visa interaction, not just policy, but group of advocates who work with our witnesses and victims to ensure their safety, at least by helping them with the application and accepting that and passing it on. Our bilingual efforts to pay our bilingual employees more, I think, is important because it attracts people who look like the community to the DA's office and provides us a skill set that is needed in more than 40% of the cases. We need people who are bilingual. We need to be fair to everyone, and you never do it by instilling fear in people by asking them what their status is.
Thank you. Shantir.
You know, I think this is a good time to bring up the fact that cite and release has been on the books and legal for years. And under this administration, it hasn't been utilized almost at all. When you talk about the criminal ramifications of people's immigration status on their actions, cite and release is a way that I think we can be more just and more fair with a large group and population of our undocumented folks. Because once you get them into the Harris County Jail, quite frankly, the Sheriff's Department and the DA's office lose a lot of control. They get fingerprinted. Immigration, ICE gets involved. Those are the things that we have to be very intentional and cognizant about. And I think on low-level stuff, we've got to start working with cite and release because we're just full. We're killing people in the jail because we're so full. And I think that immigration is a wonderful part of that ability to use cite and release.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. Yeah, actually, I have two questions, if you would allow it. I'm Mo Cortez.
Can you let us know who you are first?
Okay. Yes, sir. I'm Mo Cortez. My pronouns are he, him, they, them. I'm intersex and trans Chicano, a criminal legal advocate from Grassroots Leadership, a policy and research organizer over there. And my first question to you is the JMI report was released in June 2020 to basically release anybody with a case older than 9 months from Harris County Jail that was nonviolent and not including DWI. Is this something that you plan to implement? And if so, what support do you need for the community for people to re-enter society?
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Tier, you answer first.
So I've read the JMI report cover to cover. There are a lot of incredibly innovative and good ideas. That one, dismissing nonviolent cases that are 9 months or older, is just not something that we can do. It doesn't follow our oath to see that justice is done in every case. But what I am going to commit to is a comprehensive review of every case that we filed, especially the ones that are still pending since the intake division has been destroyed. So we are going to look at all of them. You're going to see a number of older cases have to be dismissed because witnesses have died, witnesses have changed their stories, there's evidence is lost. There are a lot of different things that we're going to see that cases have to be dismissed. But just going at some random blanket time and dismissing cases is not something we can do. And the definition of nonviolence is really not something that we've had defined yet. So,
DA Ogg?
We don't need a blanket rule when we have prosecutors whose oath requires us to do justice in every single case. What we needed was more hours in the day or more people. So what we did was create a triage program that was funded by the Commissioner's Court to review the huge backlog of cases. And in just 2 years, our prosecutors reduced the number of pending backlogged cases from 148,000 to 105,000. We're often criticized about having a high dismissal rate. What you need to know is that that dismissal rate is about 90% either convicted in a different case or successfully completed a pretrial diversion program. So the way we have cleared the docket is by doing exactly what my opponent says he wants to do. Too late, we did it.
Thank you. And my next question, it kind of starts off with Harvey Murphy Jr. Was a 63-year-old black grandfather that lived in Texas. He moved to California. Then he moved back to Texas and went to the DMV to do the right thing, you know, to get his, update his address and get his picture taken. And he was actually arrested at the DMV. AI, artificial intelligence, identified him as a robber at the Sunglass Hut. And, you know, he was incarcerated in Harris County Jail for a couple of weeks and was released, but he also was sexually assaulted. So my question to you, will you cease use of artificial intelligence and release anybody with a case that's been tied to artificial intelligence and had no alibi? He was only released because he was caught, he was on video in California, so that's my question to you.
Can you answer first?
Sure. AI is too new to be reliable evidence in a case involving people. Now, we utilize it to improve efficiency in things like reviewing transcripts or looking for particular incidents in body cam, but it is not appropriate to be used in evidence, and I would be highly skeptical of a case that was built in part even on AI. I know it happens, but I haven't known it to happen here in Harris County.
Sean?
Yeah, AI is way too new to use as a piece of evidence, let alone the linchpin to any case. You know, I imagine we're going to see the evolution of AI in the criminal justice world, much like we saw the evolution of DNA and all of those things. And how many exonerations did we have because we relied on DNA before we truly understood what we were dealing with? So AI, I think, is, because we all had to struggle through that, that's going to be something that we're going to be very, very cognizant of before we ever rely on anything approaching that as an admissible piece of evidence against someone. But it is already and has already shown to be a good investigative tool. But if that's all your evidence or any of the evidence that you're eventually going to rely on, that's not something you're going to see under my administration. Unless I'm there for 25 years and we figured it out.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes. We got one more?
One more.
All right, one more.
Last one.
All right, last one.
My name is Julio
Mr. Gray is
McCall,
ready to go.
and I with Texas Project, Organized Project. As a Houstonian who has seen firsthand how current probation practice can completely derail people from minor infractions, how will you go about reforming probation to make it more fair? And will you consider greater uses of community service embedded probation? That's it.
Mr. Tier?
It was almost like I asked you for that as the last question. This is one of the things I am the most excited about when I get in. We talked a little bit earlier briefly about it, but the conditions of probation, quite frankly, haven't been changed in any significant way since at least 1990. We're going to scrap it all. We're going to scrap it all for diversion programs. We're going to scrap it all for deferreds. We're going to scrap it all for even probations. We are going to a one condition model. It is going to be better yourself. The infrastructure is already there in the trade unions, the apprenticeship programs, and many other things of that nature. Go do that for a year. Go do that for 2 years and have that journeyman who's teaching you come back and tell us that you're on your way to getting your license, to getting your journeyman status yourself. That's how you give people hope and you give people a rehabilitation that matters. The recidivism rate is going to be non-existent, and we are going to go forward without creating the next generation of violent criminals.
Are you running for DA or judge? Because the judiciary has control and responsibility for all conditions of probation. They are not up to the district attorney's office. While we can make recommendations, they may only be set and only be enforced by judges. And we've seen a lot of changes in the way our judiciary handles people on probation. Far fewer cases of people brought in for fines or fees. I don't see anyone being pursued by our prosecutors at the order of a judge who's filed something because of a wealth-based reason for not meeting their conditions. So the conditions of probation that I think are most important for crime victims are those related to domestic violence cases, protecting women and others from stalkers or intimate partners attacking or intimidating them at their home or place of work. So to scrap conditions would badly endanger victims of domestic violence or any other type of violence.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. This concludes our questions. Now you can applaud. These candidates both have another event to get to. So I'm going to excuse you both and say thank you. One last time, please stand up and give them a round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and you may be excused.
Thank you.
Make sure that